Hey, you dearies. Do you want a review of It Chapter 2? Well, I've got one. All you gotta do is come a little closer. Closer! Okay, I'm gonna drop the accent, but if you thought I was going to do a review of it without dressing like a clown, you are the clown, because of course I love me a theme and I love me some theatrics. So here we go. I have a spoilerific review and explanation of Pennywise and It Chapter 2 for you. So hang tight, everyone, and don't flit away. In this sequel, the kids are all grown up and they discover that the real horror isn't Pennywise, it's taxes, adult responsibility, and global warming. I'm kidding, but not really. I did feel like there was a subtle ongoing commentary about how people are the real monsters, especially with the inclusion of like abuse and bullying. There's some hard-hitting subjects there, but before I get distracted by themes, let's dive into the nitty-gritty of what I felt about this movie. First off, I want to clarify, I wanted to like this movie against the odds. Usually sequels aren't as good or are a lot worse than their predecessor, with the exception of maybe, I think, Shrek 2 and Hellboy, The Golden Army, and sadly, I don't think the sequel for it was anywhere near as good as the original. It fell flat for me, and it simply lost all of the charm of its predecessor. What made the 2017 It so magical was the friendship between the kids. They were a misfit bunch of losers who came together to help Billy find and save his little brother. You felt the emotional stakes there, and the horror was contained to their little town. However, when you fast forward and they're adults, they've moved on with their lives. They no longer have family in Derry, and it just felt like there's less immediacy and it felt less personal for them. In the 2017 It was left largely as an unexplained urban legend. You didn't know where he came from. It was a battle of wills and an allegory about being able to literally fight your fears. However, in this sequel, they decided to explain the mythology behind him, and their explanation left more questions than it answered. Like, what is Pennywise? We hear Pennywise say, "I am an eater of worlds," and we hear Mikey say, "I know what you are," but he doesn't actually say what Pennywise is, and I don't understand if he has plot important information, why he doesn't use it to defeat Pennywise and tell his friends about it. That doesn't make sense if he just kind of teases it. Stop teasing us, Mikey, just use that information. We know, and spoilers for the book, he is a cosmic alien from the Macroverse, and that's related kind of to the Dark Tower series, but he's essentially a Lovecrafting being of energy who feeds off fear, and primarily from children because they're easier to scare and manipulate. But it is Lovecraftian inspired in nature, and he's essentially comprised of the Deadlights. And if you stare into and actually perceive his form of the Deadlights, you are psychically transported into another dimension, and that either drives you insane or it kills you. It's kind of like the Nightmare Realm in Bloodborne, which is also Lovecraftian inspired. I just have to note one thing right here. There is a quote from Stephen King. So, yeah, it's Lovecraftian inspired and he's an alien. It gets really weird the more you think about it. But wait, there's more. The novel gets even weirder. In the novel, the gang of adult losers complete the Ritual of the Chud in order to channel a giant space turtle who is its mortal enemy. I'm not even making this up. This is why people have mocked Stephen King, and I'm glad that they threw out the space turtle explanation in this movie, because what they did try to explain, they didn't cover. So it gets even more ridiculous and more unbelievable if they try to put the turtle in there. Yeah. I will say though, if you need to research and read the It novel and brush up on your Lovecraft in order to understand its origin story that they try to explain in this movie, then the movie has failed narratively. Yes, I will say there were some positives that I saw in this movie, like I did genuinely laugh. I thought it was hysterical when the zombie monster started barfing in Stanley's mouth as "You're my angel, you're my darling angel" plays in the background. That was comedic genius. However, I also was laughing at parts that I don't think I was supposed to laugh at. It was just that the CGI was so bad, it was just comical to me. There's a point at which something is so fake it becomes no longer scary anymore, and this is an effect called the Uncanny Valley. And I might have mentioned this before on my channel, but essentially the Uncanny Valley, it's a graph. You have the scary scale, and then you have familiar to unfamiliar. And in between familiar and unfamiliar is the scariest, because your brain doesn't know how to process it if an object or if a person or situation is real or unreal, and that's what causes the unease. That's why people are so afraid of clowns or dolls, because it's sort of humanish, but not. It's in between. Now, let's apply this effect to this movie. So think of the cases where they used really fake looking CGI. Like for one scene, it started out creepy for me, and that was with the innocuous old lady who was offering Beverly tea. What was so disturbing was we saw glimpses of her cackling and running around dancing naked in the background, and that's just like whiplash. Like, what is going on? Like, literally, I'm glad this movie was rated R, because I said, what the fuck? Because, like, what was going on? And that was genuinely disturbing and unnerving to me. However, the scariness stopped when the old lady turned into this purple, large, ginormous CGI hag, and then I started laughing. It became no longer scary to me because it was so ridiculously fake. You know what this scene reminded me of? It reminded me of a less well-executed version of The Shining. If you recall, there's this one scene where Jack Nicholson's character walks into a bathroom and there's this gorgeous naked lady in the bathtub, and he just starts making out with her. However, he looks in the mirror and he sees that she's this old woman who's dead and decaying, and she just starts cackling at him. And that scene is disturbing and terrified middle school me so badly. However, I think this scene in the It sequel could have been much scarier if they just kept it simple and just kept the prosthetics instead of resorting to CGI. Like, I've got to admit that I found Pennywise the scariest when he was in his basic clown form, and that's because all of Bill Skarsgård's brilliant performance was allowed to shine through, and you could see all of his mannerisms. Like, the highlights for the sequel for me were when he was trying to lure the little girl under the bleachers, and when he was just being an absolute creep, licking the side of the mirrors of the funhouse. Those felt and looked more real to me, and I wish that the sequel had stuck with that. I do have to give credit for Bill Skarsgård's performance though, and for both this movie and its predecessor, I've gotta say Pennywise is my favorite horror movie design out of any creature. Maybe the Pale Man from Pan's Labyrinth, but his design is gorgeous. It's just a simple, stark white against blood red, and I'm sorry, I butchered it completely. It's not symmetrical at all. I just did it in 5 minutes with like lipstick and foundation, but his actual design is brilliant and gorgeous. So I give this movie that. However, it lost the charm and the scariness of its original, like it deflated like a flat balloon for me. Those are my thoughts for this movie. If you've watched it, let me know down below. If you haven't watched it yet, but you watched a spoiler review anyway, thanks for sticking around for the ride. But I'll catch you next time, and now I'm gonna go and wash all this crap ton of makeup on my face because, oh lordy, it's gonna stain. But I'll catch you later. Bye, see ya.